what's up?
Hey folks, Jerry here. Welcome to the Pioneers of Insight podcast, a show that explores the wipeouts, crackups, and recoveries of inspiring and influential people. Here you'll get the stories of the quest to find success beyond the struggle and the great leaps of innovation that take us there. People that sound like this.
JLD.
What's up,
Jerry.
What's up, man?
What's up, brother?
Thank you so much,
Well, I'm
Jerry. This
excited
has
to be
been
here, Jerry.
fantastic.
Thanks for
Thank
inviting
you so
me.
much for having me.
Fun today.
Keep telling your story as well.
Yeah, man.
Nicole,
Hey, how you doing?
been a while, right?
Yeah, it has.
Today we deep dive the life story of Nicole Jansen, who was forced to reinvent herself after the loss of a multi-million-dollar family business. All right, strap in, folks, as we head into a story about failure's family and the courage to begin again. Enjoy, and I will see you on the other side.
Yeah, I got my husband's, it's a long story, but we're actually back together again, which is awesome. And
Nicole Jansen, welcome back to the Pioneers of Insight podcast. I'm so glad to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Jerry. I'm excited to be here. One of the most important things, of course, about being successful in business is being authentic and being you. And so for me, how I show up is by just really with, it sounds kind of corny, but really with love. I show up with love. I show up with helping people to see the best in themselves. So what I do is I work with entrepreneurs and help them to play to their strengths, build a business around what they love to do, what they're great at, and doing something that they can make money at so that they can build a life around it. And in doing that, of course, I come across a lot of people that don't accept themselves, that don't accept their strengths, that don't accept who they are, and don't accept their experiences. Like you talk about a lot about, the low times. A lot of times people don't want to talk about those things. They want to avoid that, and they want to focus just on the next success or their dreams or goals or what they want to accomplish. And so I got to go deep into who are they, what are they all about, and then how can we build on that to build a life and a business that they absolutely love and that is fruitful. And then, of course, the best version of them gets to show up as well.
Well, there's a couple of things I hear already. The question was how you see yourself showing up every day, and you said love, right? Mm-hmm. And I hear how service comes at the forefront of what you do, because immediately when I was asking a question about how you see yourself showing up, you started to talk about how you serve others. So yes. I hear this connection.
Yes.
But let's untangle this just a little bit, just for clarity's sake and for the listener. If I was to call up your mom right now and ask her what you do, what would she say you do?
What would she say that I do? She would say that I'm a very driven, very focused, results-driven person. I get results for my clients.
Yeah.
That's how I show up.
All right. Who are your clients?
They're entrepreneurs and business owners, business leaders. Most of the time, I'm not working in big corporate. I'm working in, unless it's like a department where somebody is looking for some cultural change. But for the most part, I'm working with the decision maker, the owner, and the one that is really at the helm, that's looking to make a change in their business and or in their life, of course, along with that.
Well, let's get a sense of how you came to this place where you're now stepping forward to serve others with love, and you're doing it primarily helping get people a sense of their purpose and their strengths, direction in their own business and their lives. On this show, we like to focus on this connection between what we end up taking on as our life purpose and our challenges and our direction and our missions in life to the lows, because this is a place where we gain our strengths.
Yeah.
So what would you consider your low point? And do you think that relates in your case?
Oh, Yes, totally. And that has been my experience too, is that the lows, who was I talking to yesterday that said, go to those places that scare you, because that's where the universe is sending you there, because that's where your genius is. And I think that a lot of times those lowest points in our life, I always ask people about their experiences, because I believe that no experience has been wasted, and especially the painful experiences. So for me, I've had a few lows, had the opportunity of having a few in different areas. It's been in health and relationships and in business and money. The biggest low, though, for me, business-wise, was when my mid-20s. We had built a successful business, my parents and I. I had my own business, but I also had kind of dove into their business because it was growing so fast and they needed help early on. And so we built that business, became very, very successful. And then it fell apart through a series of events and people that lacked integrity that we were in business with and all that. And so I literally found myself on my ass going, okay, what do I do now? Although I wasn't smiling at that time. But, I was like, okay, what do I do now? I thought that was what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. And I thought that's what we were going to do. I mean, it was like our financial future was set up. I mean, done and done. Don't have to work another day in my life if I don't want to. My parents don't have worked another day in their life. Generational wealth is set up. And then all of a sudden it's gone. How does that happen? And you kind of go like, what did I do? And so you start to blame yourself. I certainly did. My parents certainly did. We blamed ourselves for the decisions we make that led to that. Mm-hmm. And in the process, what I also did is I also looked at it and said, what can I learn from this? I'm very analytical. So, I look at it and I want to learn as much as possible because I don't want to repeat the lesson, Mm-hmm. So I really unpacked it for a while and said, okay, what actually happened here, and what out of this can I do with this learning? Mm-hmm. And so that led to the business coaching, and that because I could only do that and do that effectively because the experience that I had. I learned a lot on the way up, but I also learned a lot more on the way down.
That often happens to be the case for a lot of people that come through these struggles. Let me rewind just for the listener. Sure. So I hear you come from a family that had a deep sense of security, right? And a connection to what they were doing. Part of that was your business. You were a big part of that. And it was yanked away. So I want to rewind a little bit so we can get a sense of what those changes look like for you, so the listener can really sink their teeth into it, maybe apply it in their own life.
Sure. So
can you paint the picture of who was in your life at that time, and what did you consider your biggest challenges before that whole bomb went off?
Great question. So first of all, I was in my mid-20s. It was a short period of time, but a few years for it to fall apart. You have a business that does 10 million plus, it takes a few minutes to unravel, though faster than you'd expect. But people in our life, we had a lot of relationships. That business was actually in the network marketing world, so we had a lot of relationships with people.
Who was important in your life?
Those people were important in our life. I mean, the leaders.
I'm asking about
my life. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What was important in my life certainly were my parents. Certainly were the leaders, the people that we had poured our lives into and our hearts into, and to have those relationships severed because of dissension, because of other people saying things that were incorrect, lies, basically lying about us. There was a lot of betrayal. There was a lot of disconnect in that moment. Now, up to that point, I thought my biggest challenge was, how do we grow this bigger? How do we what do we do with what we've been given? That was where I was at in the beginning. But before that, but when it all fell apart, here we are. We've lost everything. Lost in terms of financial. Lost everything. Lost most of the relationships. We're sitting here going, we have like all, I mean, it all fell apart, everything. Health-wise, my business, the stress in the business impacted me physically because my body started to shut down. Mm-hmm. And so I went through a series of, this would have been 1998. I ended up at a naturopath, and he's like, okay, you got this, all these things going on. And it took a while for me to find, back then there weren't that many around, to find somebody that could give me some answers. Mm-hmm. And literally, I mean, I've sat in front of, I've spent tens of thousands of dollars just to be able to rebuild my immune system, to rebuild my, different aspects of my health. And, I mean, exhausted, chronic fatigue. I had mono. I've actually had it twice. So, it was like a total implosion. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, all the relationships that I valued that, were the people that I hung out with, were all of a sudden, they weren't there anymore.
Yeah.
So all these things were breaking down. Yeah.
This is something a lot of us could probably relate to. When there's all these external stressors going on, we tend to lean into our relationships, right? And yeah. It sounds like at that time in your life, it still wasn't enough. You're breaking down physically. So my question for you was, okay, here you are at a time where the sense of crisis is increasing in your life, right? Maybe the wheels are starting to come off. Here you're in this pressure cooker, stress, anxiety, worry, fear of not just something you created going away, something that has generational meaning to your family, right? Mm-hmm. Things are getting really hard. Once those relationships step away, where did you go for support?
I went inward.
And now, a quick word from our sponsor. Josh is the founder of Weevil Outdoor Supply Company. He loves creating killer apparel for outdoor people. But his job, he says, that's about putting out fires daily. Here's what he called a typical day.
So we created a new jersey. I built it. It's a ride jersey. It minimalizes neck rub. It's a great jersey.
But there was a catch.
We decided to move our production for all of our t-shirts to a new factory.
And so they do, and they put in some new orders.
It's approved. I shoot the photos in the studio. When the jerseys arrive, we pump it up on Instagram, deliver the jerseys. They're loving it.
Until
Matt calls me 4 or 5 times and I know something's wrong.
Matt's the head of sales.
He's like,
the logo's upside down. Not upside down, it's like inverted.
And we're like, oh my God, all the patches are on upside down. How did they not see that?
Weevil, get off the couch and go outside. To check out killer hats, shirts, jerseys, and apparel, visit weeviloutdoor.com.
Where did you go for support?
I went inward. One of the toughest things was people that you trusted, people that you poured your life into, then all of a sudden you'd hear things that they'd say about you, or that they would walk away, or they wouldn't trust you. Or so, there was a lack of trust out here, the broken trust out here. Mm-hmm. So I went inward. And that's where the being analytical and checking in. So first of all, it was, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? Mm-hmm. I was dating a guy at the time, and that didn't go, I was like, this is toxic. Cause when you're down, like, you attract
for
who
sure
you are. So
isn't that like the hard part of it, right? It's like a cycle that you can't get out of, because at that time, and I'm sorry to interrupt your flow a little bit, no. I'll take you right back, but you're in this pattern of negativity, right? Because things are falling apart, and yet you're trying to process it at the same time and maintain a valuable relationship, but yet you still have all this energy, the impact of that stress. I hear you say.
Well, and obviously I'm looking at, okay, what can I do? I gotta build, I gotta do something new. I gotta replace the income. At the very least, I gotta replace the income. So it was interesting because my mother's like, what are you doing? I mean, hanging out with this guy, this is not your thing, right? Like there was such a disconnect or a misalignment that she was like, what's going on? And,
what was
and so
like? What help
he was
us
just,
really understand
he was just
it.
not, yeah, it was a low point.
It's okay.
Let's just say that. But he was a little rough around the edges. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
But,
so let's say you're trying to compensate a little bit.
So I'm like, so what happened is I just literally was like, you know what? I've got to clean house. And so I'm very visual and kinesthetic. So I pictured like a clean slate, and I started going through all my relationships and saying, okay, does this person help? You know, does this add value to me or not?
What was your trigger to do that? How is a person, when everything is going wrong, maybe even see yourself going in the wrong direction a little bit, you're like, oh, crap, where's this new pattern showing up in terms of the relationships I'm choosing? What's unique about Nicole Jansen that she steps up in that moment and goes, I need to clean house? How did you do that?
It was just too toxic. It was too unhealthy. I was unhappy. Nothing was working. And I'm like, this isn't working. Mm-hmm. Something's got to change. And so when I looked at it, the first thing I did, and I'm a very introverted person. Yeah, I have my own podcast and I do all these things and I speak and train. But really, by nature, I'm a very introverted person. I like my personal time. And so if I'm feeling like there's all these people infringing on that peace within me and that freedom of who I am. He was also very controlling, very obsessive, and a little stalker happening there. But, so I was like, just give me the space to be able to think. And so that's where I started to go through every single one. I'm talking like, okay, God, does he help me or hurt me? Yes, he helps me. He gets to stay. Mom and Dad, right now, I love them. I want them part of it, but they were also going through their own struggles. Okay, so where do they fit in this? And so you kind of picture these circles where I literally cleaned house. So on Saturday night, there wasn't anybody to call to say, hey, let's go hang out. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Well, I'll just hang out with me. To me, when I say I go within, I have a personal relationship with God that I trust. I'm like, he's not going to leave me. He's not going to, and it's like this little voice in my head that says, it's going to be okay. You know what? There are going to be new relationships that are going to be replacing those old relationships. You got to create space. What most people are afraid to do is to clean out the old relationships because there are attachments to that. There's safety in that. But when you clear out those toxic relationships, those unhealthy relationships that no longer serve you or that will keep you in the same place, when you're trying to go here, a big part of how do you get from here to there is who you hang around with in your associations. But when you do that, you actually create space. You literally create space in your heart and in your life for other people to show up. And then as people were showing up, I was evaluating who they were and where they got to, like to the level of what of depth of relationship that I was willing to go with that person. And the challenge, of course, with that is not trusting people, right? You can go to an extreme and not trust anybody in. But, and I went through that for a little bit, but I had to realize that this is a new relationship, not seeing that new relationship through old relationships. Like I got screwed over here. This person's going to do the same thing. But at the same time, I got to learn from this so that I don't repeat the same things. I mean, look, if the telltale signs are there, then pay attention.
First, let me catch the viewer up a little bit, or the listener up a little bit. So big loss, generational loss, right? In terms of your relationships and your business. You're stepping into a space where you're trying to compensate a little bit. At least it sounds like it from this coach therapist's background. It sounds like you're reaching out for things to help ease the pain, right? Some of those things were showing up in personal relationships and relationship with significant others. Nicole Jansen's superpower starts to show up. Meaning there's a point where you're triggered to go, all right, I've had enough. So you have an ability to be able to step forward and take care of yourself, right? When things are getting bad. Now, there's something important here. The fire was really burning for you to do that, right? Like it had to get hot before you took that step, right? And I think that's an important message for some people to hear, right? For you, maybe that, I don't know, maybe you had a little bit more resilience where it lasted longer, or maybe you did it a little bit quicker than others. What would you say is helpful to others that might have the fire burning pretty hotly and are reluctant to take that step? What did you get out of that? What was the lesson for you?
I'm a results-driven person, so I looked at it and said, "This is not what I want. This is not getting me the result that I want in life. This isn't what I want my life to look like." And so, if you want something different in your life, you're going to have to do things differently, because what you've done up until now has gotten you to where you are, and you got to look at yourself. And I had to look at myself, take a really good look, and say, okay, how did I contribute? Not blaming other people, but looking at myself and how did I contribute to this? How did I allow this to happen?
Do you remember that moment where one thing showed up and you're like, this is it. This is the sign for me that this is enough?
Tell you about that guy that I was dating, which was interesting because in the beginning I was like, no way, not my type, but somehow you get into it, right? He's just persistent and persistent and persistent. And I'm like, oh. And anyway, I remember being at his place, and he was saying, you know, oh, I'm doing this and that. And it was just like, it was so small in his thinking and so small in his vision for his life and for our life. He wanted to marry me, and okay, so I have nothing against this, but he wanted to marry me, and I wasn't interested in getting married. So I was kind of like, hell no. But but somehow it's still there, right? Like I was still, how many people have had that experience, right? They know this relationship's not right, but they're still in it.
There's a force keeping you there, yeah, that you don't even understand.
Yeah, you don't even understand. Yeah, it's security, looking for security somewhere. And he's like,
hey, marry me. We'll go to Nova Scotia and we'll have a pot. We'll put up a tent, do a potluck dinner. We can bring dinner. We can get married there.
And I was like, what the heck am I doing here? We were in a parking lot, and he got so aggressive and like real pit bull. You know, I'm going to find you and all this stuff. And I was just like, wow. Has it gotten to this? And you know, this is where the upbringing and the personal development and all that stuff, because that's conditioned in, right? We may lose ourselves for a little while, but inside us, we know. And even if somebody hasn't been part of personal development or anything like that, but deep down inside, I have to believe that every single person, and I do believe that every single person knows they have value at the core. You know, when a child comes out, they know they have value. They cry because they're like, hey, feed me, right? They know that. Somewhere along the way that gets squelched. But deep down inside, people know, you know what? I'm better than this. There's more out there for me. I deserve better than this. And it's maybe really, really buried, granted, but it's there. And so for me, I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I'm like, never again. For me, it was like, yes or no. You know, like I'd meet somebody and I'd be like, no. Why? Because I learned in that process to qualify them through who I am and what I'm looking for in a relationship. And so it saved me a lot of time later.
Well, you're also talking about something that could be very helpful to our listener. When we're in the deepest sense of, when we find ourselves in the deepest states of crisis, we're disconnected from our greater instinct. It's there,
yeah,
but we're ignoring it. There's something else here. You're also talking about gravitating towards somebody with a deep wound, right? That's the reaction that you're seeing. You're seeing somebody that was deeply wounded.
Yes.
But your inability to honor your instincts led to a scenario where it caused this really powerful breakup, right? Because you're postponing what you already know.
Yeah.
Right? So that's pretty helpful. So, okay. You come out of this relationship where you almost ended up in a tent in Nova Scotia. Global business goals maybe would have to have been pushed away, but the resilient Nicole said, "No way, I'm going there." Right? The business. What happens to your business? It goes.
I mean, it literally fell to about 10%. It's still there. I mean, I don't take any income from it. My mom does, but I just lost the heart for it.
So your next step is you awaken.
Now what?
The results-oriented person. That's your superpower that's really awakened through this fire, right? So you take that into your new business.
Yeah.
Where do things start to turn around for you?
I had to rebuild my confidence because it was pretty beaten up at that point. And so I was asked to go work on a project with some lawyers in tax litigation. And so I ended up working with them it was supposed to be a short-term gig, ended up working with them for many years. And where it really turned around was when I sat down and I walked myself through a process, which I now take clients through, which is to ask myself, okay, specifically, what do I love? When I was a kid, what did I do naturally? What came automatic to me? And I started to unpack what my strengths were. And then I looked at it and said, okay, what game am I playing? What am I doing here? And so if I'm playing a game, what is my role in that game? So if my game is I love to see people win and succeed, which was where it started. Okay, what am I doing in that? Am I the coach? Am I a player? What am I? Right? So I started to build with this imagining it as a game and saying, what am I doing? And then once I figured that out, so strengths, the game, and then I figured out, okay, how can I make money at this? And it was only then that I considered the monetary side of it. And that's where I built Discover the Edge, which was training and development. So I'm going to do workshops and I'm going to empower people that way and help them to get clear on who they are and what they're great at.
Did you find that once you started to gain a sense of confidence, once you start to unravel what your process looked like in terms of, here's my personal process that I could take to serving others, did that help in the rest of your life? Because there's still relationships, I imagine, to build in your family. There's still that relationship with your personal health. And there's also the relationship to your creator, which you talked about. Was all that helpful?
Absolutely. My relationship with my parents, in particular, the small family, is my brother and and his family now, but really it was my parents. We had a really good relationship. Now they were struggling at that time. Of course, you can imagine all the stuff, So, and that was the second time around. They had lost everything years when I was a child. So here we are again, they're much older and stuff. So, I was able to bring my sanity and my clarity into that relationship, which is kind of a unique experience, but, to basically help my parents work through what they were working through. From a health standpoint, what I noticed is that I had a lot more peace once I got clear on that. Now, the health took a while. I remember sitting in front of a doctor 4 years into my trying to figure out with these naturopaths what to do. And I went back to a doctor to get a referral to an allergist because I wanted to see how I was doing. And she refused to give me a thing, and a referral. And she said, and I said to her, look, from all my studies, because I really researched it, I took it on. This is my health. This is my life. And I did a lot of study. And I said, look, I'm either going to get lymphoma, colon cancer, thyroid cancer, or diabetes. So one of the four things, inevitably, if things don't change and I don't do something, I'm going to end up with one of these four things. So I need your help so I can figure out where I'm at. And she said to me, no word of lie, this is exactly what she said. She said, well, a lot of people are getting it. Getting what? Well, a lot of people are getting cancer, a lot of people. And I'm like, are you kidding? I'm here now. I said, but you're telling me you can't help me now otherwise. But if I show up here at 35 and I've got cancer, you're going to help me then. And she said, oh, yes, we have chemo, we have this, and we have that, and it's all this wonderful. And I almost lost it. And I said, yeah, but I'm here now. Mm-hmm. I'm here now.
Well, this is important too, because oftentimes we don't take control of our health. We don't give ourselves permission to take control until we see the dead ends. And the medical community, and from what I hear you saying, was showing you at the time where its limitations were. So now we get to hear more of Nicole Jansen's superpower. You hear that conversation instead of laying down. You said, all right, what do I have to do next? So
what really came out for me was wrong answer. I'm still here.
I'm going to tease this out a little bit, because this is really, I think we're really starting to see some of your strengths show up pretty clearly in the interview now. All right, a doctor's looking at you and saying, yeah, I will likely see you and I'll be able to treat you for cancer.
Yeah.
Where did that strength come from, do you think? Was there a person that you can think of in your own life that maybe played a mentor where you gained that sense of strength? Or do you think that's purely something that's just was showing up more and more in you that you were developing?
I think this is where the conditioning, having listened to so many tapes and books, read books and so forth of people that had overcome, people that were successful, hearing their stories like what you're sharing here. This is why this is so valuable to hear, saying, wow, if they can do it, I can do it. But I think so that helped, I think, but I think my nature, that strong personality in me, and that fighter in me was what came out. When I was a kid, my brother used to instigate. He was the instigator. I'm like, leave me alone. He was older. He'd be like bugging me, right? And to try to get me going finally, like poke. And I came from a strong family. My parents are both strong personalities as well. My brother is. Everybody's like bossing me around. And I remember just having that feeling like, hey, I want to control. So I like being in control. I like my freedom. And so when somebody tells me, no, too bad for you, that just doesn't work for me.
Well, I hear she was poking the bear a little bit in you, and you had a pretty developed fighter.
I think a lot more people, if they would trust themselves and they would allow that, because a lot of people have experienced a lot of control. Mm-hmm. Right? People controlling their thoughts, telling them what to believe, all this stuff. But if you actually, use that and saying, I don't like that, right? Mm-hmm. But if you use that rebellious fighter, whatever you want to call it, inside, the fire inside, it can be extremely powerful used in the right context and in the right way.
Well, I think that's what I'm seeing in you. There's a little bit of a rebel and there's a little bit of a fighter. Not a little, a lot. Yeah. And I think that's a great message to hear out loud. It's okay to do that. It's okay to unleash that part when it's for the benefit of your own self-care and for your mission in life, right?
Well, we started off with love, right? We started off talking about how do I show up is in love. Well, there's only two. I mean, you're either coming from love or you're coming from fear, right? Fear is this contracting. It is. I mean, you can blast out, but really it's it's ego, it's right. All this, it's small. Mm-hmm. Love is abundant. Love is, heck no, I love myself too much to accept this. I love myself. I want more. That's coming from a place of love rather than a place of, well, tell me what you think, and I'll do that.
That's important to hear. Well, in the way that you're describing it, you're saying fear was serving a greater purpose, which was your ability to go forward in love, right? So fear ended up serving that.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's move into the present. I call this the flow, and this is where I want to kind of deep dive the secrets of everybody that I am privileged to sit down with. You serve the world, right? You serve people. and you help them get in touch with their strengths. So I want to get a sense of how you stay in touch with your own strengths. Are there practices that you do daily? Are there, we don't even have to call them practices. We can make it really loosey-goosey and just say ways of being. What do you think is important for you each and every day to stay in touch with what you think you need to be?
So for me, I need to stay connected, grounded. A lot of times people say to me, I'm very grounded, especially in my work. I need to be, because I'm working with people similar to you, right? You're working with people that might be completely ungrounded, and you need to, help them to get grounded. So staying grounded is really important to me. I need my quiet time so that I'm connected, and I connect to God, and I'm like checking in. There's a, it's hard to explain, but there's a connectedness that you feel. So people do it through meditation or prayer or whatever, but it's really, it's that place of peace. And I will often go to that place of every day. I want to make sure that I can go to that place of peace, because it's from that place that I can think clearly about what's going to happen that day. What do I need to do? What is the best use of my time? And so, there's that. It also, my intuition, I have a lot of intuitive, I think we all do, but we don't necessarily value it or go there, is we have an intuition, is that when we're doing something or we're going through a day, are we honoring ourselves? Are we doing what we're meant to be doing? Are we playing to our strengths? And, when you're not playing to your strengths, and, I know Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach, he talks about, this playing to your unique ability. And most people, what he says is, and I think it's very accurate, most people spend 20% of their time at the most doing what they love, what they're great at, truly their genius. Okay. 80% of the time is doing things they don't love, that they're not good at, right? He said, you need to flip that around. 80%. Now, there are going to be a few things that you're going to need to do that you don't absolutely love, that are not your genius, but they still need to get done. But you've got to spend, so I'm checking in all the time. Am I doing, if I'm not happy, if I'm feeling friction, I know that I'm not doing things that, that serve me, like editing podcast. In the beginning I started doing it, and it was like really cool and interesting, kind of therapeutic, or it's like playing solitaire, right? Like do. And then after I was like, no, this is not, I don't want to do this anymore, because I could feel my energy. And this is a real good indicator. If you feel drained, that's a clue. This is when you feel invigorated. Some people could go up on a stage and they can present for a few hours even, or a whole day, and they actually feel invigorated afterwards. Why? Because they're playing to their strengths.
Well, this is a tough one too.
Yeah.
For one, I'm a guy who spends almost like 16 hours on every podcast, right? So that for me, that's like a passion piece. But you're talking about an ability to discern, right? And I hear you saying, I discern by looking at energy, how much energy that I have for what I'm doing. And that's a way for me to discern whether I'm connecting to strength or something that could be potentially detrimental. Did I get that right?
Yes. And there's passion. So we talk about service. There are times when things need to be done. And like even in the podcast world, right? There's an element of service there when somebody says, I can't afford to hire an editor, right? So I'm going to do it myself, and I'm going to do it as a labor of love. But there's that, but then there's also spending your life doing things that are not playing to your strengths. And is that really a labor of love if you're doing so much of it, right? Because your true gifts then, if you're spending time here, you only have a certain amount of energy. If you're spending your time and you only have a certain amount of time, if you're spending your time here doing things that you're not great at, that means that you're not spending time over here doing the things that you're a genius at.
Well, there's also something behind what you're saying. You got to know who the hell you are. Right?
Yes.
So if you're an artist and you're sitting down and you're working on creating a quality piece of content, that makes sense. But if you're a coach and you gain momentum and energy by serving others, by helping them through their messes, that's where you need to be. So that's the discernment part that I was getting at.
Yes.
And first the energy, and also I added a little bit there for the conversation's sake. It's really understanding who you are behind it.
There's another piece to this, actually. When you talked about daily activities, I think is really, I see it nowadays even more than ever, is this this honoring, like people are like, how are you? I'm so busy. I've got so much to do. There's so many entrepreneurs out there that are getting into business. They're new entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs. They're loving what they're doing. They're passionate. I was just the other day talking to a coach who said, oh yeah, I've got 35 clients. And I'm like, how many are you seeing on a weekly basis? Right. And I said, be careful, because it's like an adrenaline rush to go, oh, I'm helping all these people and it's so awesome. But if you don't watch out, you're going to burn out and you're going to lose yourself in the process. So there's balance there. So the point I'm making is that make sure you get rest. Most people, it's like the 24/7, working 7 days a week, all hours. People have this perception that's what you need to do to be successful as an entrepreneur. No, you need to play full out, but that's when I talk about results. Results doesn't equate to time. An entrepreneur is in a different time system than an employee. An employee, that's what happens. You have these employees that go 9 to 5, and then they go, now to get a business myself. And so now it's not 9 to 5, it's 5 to 9, right? Like 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. or whatever. And they're working these longer hours thinking that's how they're going to be successful, is by adding and putting more time in. And it's not necessarily more time. It's how can I have quality time and get results?
What's your framework for that personally? Like, how do you determine how much work you put in every day?
So it varies, but what I do is I always make sure in the beginning of the day, I'm always grounding myself. I make sure for me, I need 8 hours. I know everybody's different. I need 8 hours of sleep, right? If I don't, even 7 hours, if I do that, I can do that for a day or two, a couple days, but after a little while, and I also work out too. Yeah, I can start to see that law of diminishing returns kicking in. So I make sure I get enough sleep. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm centering myself, I'm grounding myself as a prayer, meditation. I will go to the gym. Now, if we're starting off here, like right now, we're starting off at 8. I'm going to the gym. My husband and I are actually going to go work out this afternoon, later on. So I'm not going to do it. Then I switch it around. But I make sure I work out, exercise every day. I eat healthy. We just juiced this morning, and you don't have to juice, but I mean, if it's great if you can. So I put good food in. I put good nutrients in my body. I center myself. I work I work out so that I can get some exercise, even if that's just walking on a treadmill, reading a book, whatever. People don't, have different levels of physical activity that they're up for. And then in terms of the time, I look at it and saying, what do I need to accomplish today that would move me forward? And I always have to remind myself, because it's easy to fall into that where, it's you're equating it to time. It's impact. I look at it and I say, what are the top things that I want to accomplish today? And if I accomplish them in 4 hours, great. Like, I don't need to work 8 hours or 10 hours, 12 hours to get those things done.
So prioritization might be important too. It's figuring that out.
Yeah, I prioritize. I have my list and I go, okay, this is what I want to get done. And you know what? The interesting thing is that when you eat healthy and you take time, and when I take time, when my husband comes home, we take time for our, and that's important, right? And even when I was single, when I was alone, the little bit of story, when we were separated, I would spend that time, whether it's with someone else or calling them on the phone or just quiet time by myself, I would take that time to just ground. So we're not human, as the saying goes, we're not human doings, we're human beings. And I think that as said, most people are equating results to the amount of time, and that is an employee time system. That is not an entrepreneurial time system. That's
pretty valuable. So where do you see yourself headed, Nicole? What's your big picture vision for yourself at this point in your life?
Well, I've had a change in my life. As I just kind of alluded to, my husband and I got back together again 6 months ago. That has been amazing, truly amazing. And so we've been building our vision together of what we want to do. He's got some businesses that he wants to build in the car industry and go auto racing and all that. For me, I'm excited about building my business up. I've got, an academy that I'm launching with some courses, online courses to support entrepreneurs that are just getting started. I've got some collaborations that I'm doing with some other coaches where we're going to go and work with even larger organizations. I'm excited about that. And then I've got my podcast, which is Leaders of Transformation. And I just launched a Facebook group and we've got 150 members in there.
Wow.
Need to invite you. I've just been trying to remember everybody to invite. But we started it last week and we've already got 150 people that are leaders of transformation, people that are making an impact in the world. And I'm excited to grow that community, and I'm connecting people using part of what is my strength is connecting great people together. And so I'm doing a lot of that, and I want to continue to build up that community. And the goal with that is to help all these silos. Everybody's doing amazing things. There are lots of people doing amazing things out there. Is how do you connect them so they can have a greater impact? And so a big part of my vision of where I'm going is what is necessary in order for that to come to fruition, where the leaders of transformation are actually working together and we're exponentially increasing our impact.
So for those listeners that are interested in keeping up with Nicole Jansen, where could they go? Where would you send them?
I would send them to discovertheedge.com is my main website. The podcast is on iTunes and all Stitcher and everything as well. And that also has a unique website as well, which is leadersoftransformation.com.
Well, Nicole, again, thank you for doing this for a second time around. Honestly, I thought you shared even more deeply and were even more vulnerable in this interview. So thank you for being willing to step up and show leadership.
Oh, my pleasure, Jerry. Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, that's a wrap. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review on whatever platform you're listening to. This just helps put it in the hands of the people likely to get something out of it. If you'd like to dig a little deeper and see what we got cooking here at TOOWi Media, you can visit our website at TOOWiMedia.com. Wishing you grace to fill your sails today. Stay great in the meantime, and I'll see you on the next Pioneers of Insight.
I like my freedom. And so when somebody tells me, no, too bad for you, that just doesn't work for me.